Welcome back, everyone. In this short lecture, I'm going to be talking about the Edwards et al. Article, which is a case study that shows the application of the sustainable livelihoods approach at a Maori site where the Ngati Pourou were given their land back to them by the New Zealand government in 2010. I chose this article because it offers a clear example of the different components of the sustainable livelihoods approach. Note, however, that it doesn't offer solutions or a path forward. This land and its people have experienced and tolerated the European settler colonization narrative that we've already discussed in class in detail. When Europeans settled the area, they cleared it for pasture land, which degraded the Ngati Pourou livelihoods and left the area highly susceptible to erosion and landslide, as many of the images in my slideshow demonstrate. The Waiapu catchment is an alluvial fan, meaning that erosion and sedimentation are natural parts of the way this natural system functions. But land use change through European settlement has rendered this a vastly different landscape than when the Ngati Pourou lived on these lands for centuries prior to European colonization. The tribes themselves have suffered as well under white settler rule, and their livelihoods have been compromised. So this means that simply giving back the land to the Ngati Pourou is not enough to ensure the livelihoods of these indigenous people. So the sustainable livelihoods approach offers this opportunity for this indigenous group to maintain the natural resources of their home, their culture, and their well-being, or at least identify the different elements that are involved in a sustainable livelihood for these people. The Healthy Land, Healthy Rivers, Healthy People Agreement was built on the aspirations of the local community as an example of this sustainable livelihoods ideology in action. So like the examples in the indigeneity and resilience paper that we read last week, the Waiapu catchment residents are resilient because they have to be, because they've survived adversity from both colonization and also because they live in an earthquake, landslide, and hurricane-prone area. So this could even be considered a double whammy effect, where the Ngati Pourou are exposed to both natural and anthropogenic stressors that threaten their survival and livelihoods. So in this article, unlike the Briggs et al. Article that we read about the Quechua in Mexico, in this study locals were involved with all of the work, and native Maori appear in this paper prominently. So now what I'd like to do is go through the different elements of sustainable livelihood that I defined in the last lecture in the context of the Maori in this region. So when we talk about social capital, kinship is really important in this community, and it represents a magnet for this society that holds it together. However, like the Quechua in the last article last week in Mexico, migration is also an issue since there are few job opportunities within these tribal lands. Moving on to cultural capital, there's this cemented culture of community that's central. So connectedness is strong, and it's a magnet that keeps people in the area. Language also binds them, as does their art, which you'll see in the images. Some of the cultural capital is eroding, however, as people migrate away from the Waiapu Basin, and this represents a loss of intergenerational knowledge, and it erodes cultural capital. Natural capital is a magnet. Food and natural resources bind these people to this place. However, like with migration, declines in ecosystem health have likewise degraded the livelihoods of the Ngati Pourou, and that is through a diminishment of natural capital over time, especially in the context of European colonization and settlement. As for human and political capital, migration out of the system is a problem, although there are some very highly educated people who live in this community. Those who remain are anchors, and they've been important in regaining claim to these ancestral lands. They're also very self-sufficient in a range of livelihood components. So remember, the idea behind the sustainable livelihood approach is that people are able to diversify their activities to produce ecosystem goods and services. Facilities are really important, and I've provided a few pictures of those. but the declining population makes upkeep of those facilities difficult. Moving on to financial capital, this is really limited, although the treaty settlement helped. Adaptive strategies are common for dealing with financial constraints within households. So the main thing this study does is it helps identify, or it helps the Ngati Pourou identify the different components that comprise the sustainable livelihoods of this culture. It's a first step. It doesn't offer solutions, but rather it provides a snapshot for today. So really the question is, what's next? How should the Ngati Pourou move forward? What types of capacity building could be implemented here to ensure the sustainable livelihoods of the Ngati Pourou into the future, under the possibility of increasing natural disturbance, frequency, and magnitude in the Anthropocene? Adaptive co-governance will certainly be involved, and that's what the lead author of this paper has engaged in since the publication of the paper in 2018. Other factors involved in capacity building moving forward touch on many of these concepts we've covered here in class. So things like trust are really important. Communication, information, engagement, partnership, and the importance of cultural values are certainly going to be involved as the Ngati Pourou move forward in terms of thinking about adapting to their current livelihoods and buffering themselves from future shocks.